After months of fear and dread from Star Trek fans, it is finally here, my friends. I got my Starfleet Academy sweatshirt on again today. I didn't wash it. It's getting a little stinky now. I've been so excited the last 3 days. I've just been wearing this nonstop to show my support for Alex Kurtzman and company. Since they are going to be providing me quite a bit of monetization for reviewing these episodes. And I appreciate your guys' service for giving me content. And it is here. I've watched the first episode, Kids These Days, an hour and 20-minute episode, so you don't have to. So we'll get into this full review in just a moment. You might be surprised at my take, so stay tuned, my friends. Please hit the like and subscribe button as we join and talk about all things Star Trek here. I appreciate you all for being here. My name's John Delarose. I'm a sci-fi writer myself, professional at this for a lot of years. And I have a newsletter, so if you like my thoughts on writing, I come at it mostly from a writing perspective. Sign up here. I've give you 3 free books in the description below. I appreciate you guys. We've had 250 signups like this past couple of weeks, all because you understand good science fiction's out there. And I'm going to be doing more. I actually posted on my community tab a AI cover called Space Fleet Academy, being like, I'll do it better. What do you guys think? And you guys are like, do it. You're very much enablers out there, and I appreciate that. But sign up if you haven't. I appreciate everybody who reads. If you do want to check out and support my work, the Stars Entwine's a great spot to start. I think Star Trek fans will love this for the most part. I've gotten a lot of comments also on this book, and I appreciate you guys reading. It's available on ebook, print, and audio. Both these links will be the first in the description below, so thank you for being here. Okay, so here we are. The show we've been waiting for, the show we've been dreading, as I said, came out. It had a 2-episode premiere. This is going to be just the first episode. I will cover the second episode tomorrow on the channel. And I did watch it this morning. The minute I woke up, I made my coffee, got out there, and turned this on. So the show starts very, very slowly and in a weird manner that, like, again, it just doesn't feel like Star Trek. There's not a lot of episodes of Star Trek of yore where we actually go back into the childhoods of the characters and actually see those and things like that. It usually starts within a scenario at the Academy or in the starship itself, and it takes us about 20 minutes into the episode to actually get there, which is, again, just something that doesn't feel like Star Trek. It starts with a kid whose mom's getting taken away in shackles and the like, and Holly Hunter is presiding over this thing and forcing her into jail, and then, of course, stealing the kid from her and taking her to become a Federation ward of the state because this woman was duped by somebody into being an accomplice. It's very convoluted and weird by itself. And it immediately is like, wait a minute, aren't Starfleet supposed to be the heroes here? This doesn't feel very heroic of Starfleet. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It feels like they're trying to make some message about like the government ripping kids away from moms like ice or something. But it just doesn't make sense in that context either. So it's like, it's very convoluted writing from the beginning. Now, as I watch this, and it does that, and then it shifts to 15 years later, showing that same kid on a starship, battling, like, trying to be on the run from the authorities and the like, and with these, like, crazy good effects with, the starships running around and going around the screen and stuff like that. I'm sitting here going, this isn't Star Trek. This is Star Wars. And that's been a problem I've had since J.J. Abrams and Kurtzman came to begin with. They don't seem to actually like Star Trek for what it is, a kind of heady, more science-oriented show that's a lot more thoughtful and a lot more intelligent. They really want to do this like action-packed, explosions everywhere, CGI, epic extravaganza, and turn it into Star Wars. And I thought this, again, when J.J. Abrams made that first 2009 film, I was like, he really just wants to make Star Wars. Why doesn't he do that? And of course, he did, and that didn't turn out so great either. But that's what this felt like. And as I watched this and as it went along, this really, to me, felt like Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew, the Disney Plus show about the kids that were like with these like scoundrels, trying to get back home. A lot more than it felt like a Star Trek show. And that's the first thing that it like got me. The feeling is something completely different than Star Trek. And so that's what this all starts out with. Now, this is pretty interesting. This is one of those instances where it goes so woke that it circles around to based. Okay? And so they have the She-Hulk actress, Tatiana Maslany, here. Pretty funny that they add in, again, one of the woke actresses to hammer that home. This is the first scene. It's not about Starfleet or anything about that. It's about her and her son, and she's left alone. So this is, again, if you look at the scene, what's happening here, and you start to think about it, and again, if you just watch this and turn your brain off and think of it as an action Star Wars thing, you're not going to hate it that much. You got to turn your brain off, though, because the minute you start to think about any of the writing, and it really starts to break down. This is where it goes. She immediately is a white woman with a black child whose father is not present and gone. It is so woke, it accidentally went based because they did the trope of a black child who's been abandoned by his father, so their family's forced into crime because of poverty, and then he ends up becoming a criminal himself 15 years later. Oops. And who needs to rescue him? Who's the person who can get him out of this? Who's the person who can help him? A white woman. It is a white savior situation for the first 20, 30 minutes of the show as she inducts him into Starfleet Academy and tells him to change his life. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. They went so woke. It ended up based. Now, there's a couple other comments that ended up pretty based here as well. There's these kids that showed up at the very beginning. I actually just took, pictures. And Holly Hunter is talking about them, stealing something at Starfleet Academy or whatnot. And actually says the line, as this goes along here, that it's, if you did the thing, you fess up. That way you can negotiate your terms. So we have Holly Hunter acting as a Karen space cop who, one, is ripping children away from their mothers at the very beginning of this. Two, is lecturing children on being compliant and the like. And I thought about this again. It's like, again, they went so woke on this. They, like with the Karen, like, girl boss here, they ended up being based. It actually, if you think about it, the message of this is comply with ICE. Good work, Alex Kurtzman. I'm very, very funny. Now, this is just the first 20 minutes of the show, and they actually went into Starfleet Academy after this, and it then changes settings and all that, and they open up in this utopian Starfleet Academy, which is beautiful and has lots of lightings and a cherry blossom tree inside a starship, which doesn't make a lot of sense as well, and then they introduce all the cadets and the like. So that's what goes on as that comes along. Immediately, as this happens, right, you have this character who is Daram Ryami, who's the whitest of the cadets, or a Persian. Let's just go with he's a Persian here. He bullies the Klingon and starts mocking him and etc. Okay. So light-skinned guy bullying dark-skinned guy is what they intended. However, since he is Persian, they just painted Persians as bullies. Oh no, they went so woke again that they screwed it up. The writing's very, very incompetent on the political messaging that they're trying to do. It was so funny. I'm absolutely loving it. Next, they go out onto the mission and they have all of these characters and they introduce the fat lady and the Jem'Hadar lady. And the Jem'Hadar lady keeps being referred to as number one. Insult to... This is the thing. They put a lot of references into it. But it's like an insult of references. It's like, this is number one, this isn't Riker, and it's painful to watch, right? And then like, every reference that they put into it just doesn't quite make sense within the context, right? And so I have this one here. This is a reference to the Plinkett reviews of Star Wars, again, because this feels more like Star Wars than Star Trek. What's wrong with your face? You guys remember that one from back in the day. And that's when we get onto the starship. Now, at this point, they go out, they end up in the Badlands. Everybody's seen the clips. All the clips that they've released are from the first episode. So all the clips that they went and promoted with this, it's all in here. So it's like you're rewatching these things that you already know about if you've watched all those clips already. And so they get out there. Paul Giamatti attacks the ship because he wants to like salvage all their components or something like that. And this is where it gets super cringe. He starts ranting about how he's a businessman. And it's very clear that he's a stand-in for, you guessed it, Donald Trump, right? Because the businessman. And Holly Hunter lectures him on how he's a bad businessman and then decides to trick him and is like, if you really want to take all of our components, do this, blah, 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 blah. And then he just goes with it because he's such an idiot to be duped. That's the villain, right? And so that's that. Now, there's a couple things that are like really painful about this scene, and I've talked about this before as well. One, Paul Giamatti like circles and walks around the starship, and there we are, as like a hologram version of himself. And it's like, how does he get on there? How does that work functionally? Like, is his starship bridge functioned the same way that he can go around like this? again, once you start, the visual is cool with him in the face of Holly Hunter. It on the surface, it seems all right. Once you start to think about it, it breaks down. It doesn't make sense that they'd allow somebody to walk around their bridge and see all their tactical settings like this, like as a hologram or whatever. Number two, it doesn't make sense like the layout, I mean, how does that even work, right? They don't explain it, of course. And so that's really painful. The next thing that happens is Holly Hunter, over the course of the episode, and I'm going to actually demonstrate this, sits in the captain's chair like this. And so you see her, and that's, again, this is a captain, a chancellor of academy on a military starship, lounging about like it's her couch in her living room. It doesn't feel right. And Holly Hunter never has any gravitas, doesn't evoke any kind of authority. Actually, Gina Yasharin, the Jem'Hadar lady, does a lot better a job of that. She feels out of place here the entire episode and has zero presence, just gets stepped on the entire time. And just the way they shot her, like, that's a director choice. And by the way, Alex Kurtzman directed this episode. The director had her lounge about on the chair like this, reading a book at times, and it's like, what are you doing? You're a captain of a starship. Like, it's just watching this going mind-boggling, like, what's happening here? And again, it's just the minor details. They thought it looked cool. They thought she'd be kind of different. She's kind of more relaxed than the other captains, right? So they're trying to present something different visually, right? And present her as her own character, right? But at the same time, it breaks down once you start to think about it. And that's the entire episode in a nutshell. Now, they introduce the Doctor and, of course, the hologram black lady who just like doesn't understand anything about anything. She can't even say hi properly. And it just like, and she comes from a colony of holograms, and it references Voyager, like, holographic rights, etc. And they become people. They call themselves photonics. We prefer photonics. So this is, again, gender pronoun ideology. We're Native Americans, not Indians. It's more like attempts at like shallow wokeism, right? Actually, believe it or not, the Doctor, he does a great job. Picardo does a fantastic job. He falls right back into the role, does the character well. His lines are pretty good. We get a lot of callbacks to Voyager with, we get the medical tricorder incident, which they've already shown in the clips. And we get the later on please state the nature of the medical emergency, of course, right? Which is silly because, maybe he's fallen back on his programming, but, he's that's not really his role at this point. He's an instructor, right? Now, he's actually trying to get the kids to join an opera club, which, again, is very in line with his character from Voyager. He loves the arts. He loves singing. He loves making books and things like that. That was a nice callback, and I really enjoyed it. So cool on that front. And actually, the girl, as much as she's annoying and it doesn't make sense, again, once you think about it, it starts to break down. Like, why would a hologram be programmed to just kind of be failing at everything and have to, like, figure it out? That doesn't make a lot of sense. She is charming, and it is fun on the surface again. And so this is the thing. And I'm going to tell you, this episode, from this point, as Paul Giamatti does his thing, he gets in the starship. The kids, of course, fix it, right? It's just a very simple plot, and the plot works fine on the surface, right? The girl, Genesis, is better and smarter than everybody else, right? Here she is, and she just comes up with the solutions because she's the smart girl. She's so smart. She's so better. They're all tropes. The Klingons, I'm not a Klingon. I'm a healer. Everything is just a basic, shallow trope. It works, though, if you turn your brain off. If you want to be that modern audience that is, 18 years old, not super high IQ, that they want, this is fine. It's a fine action adventure sort of thing. They fight the bad guy. They beat the bad guy. There's personal stakes in it with the kid, who grew up in whatever and had to deal with that. It all kind of works, but it also all breaks down once you start to think about any of these things, right? And so that's the whole problem with, modern Star Trek in general, and this has been Kurtzman's problem since Discovery. It all breaks down on that level. Now, back to the Doctor, they do explain his in his aging, right? And they do it, he says, 500 years ago, I added an aging program so that I would make the solids, or whatever he calls them. He doesn't call them solids, the meat and flesh, I don't remember, feel better about it. So that's how they explain it. It's a throwaway line really quickly that's not really explained. Again, if that was 500 years ago, how would it make them feel better that he ages 30 years over 500 years? That doesn't make sense. And so it breaks down once you start to think about it, even though they kind of explain it, right? Now, if easy fix here. He's been a hologram for a long time. He realizes, you know what? I've been here for 500 years. I've had the human experience. The next human experience is actually aging and then decomposing and dying. And I want to do that with this current crop of people because I've lost so many people along the way. That's actually a deeper, more interesting thought than I added a program 500 years ago to make him feel better. It's like they wanted to address it quickly and just put in a throwaway line, and it's kind of a bummer. And so again, the theme of this is that it's just not thought through. It is shallow. It kind of, if you turn off your brain and just enjoy the effects, the characters are tropes, and it's just fine. And it's fine enough. It wasn't boring. I found the first maybe 20 minutes boring, but once it got into the thing, it was okay. But there's too many of these like little like nitpick moments where it's just not good Star Trek. And so if this was Star Wars, if this was just some random space show that didn't have Star Trek elements, I'd probably forgive a lot of it because it's just like, okay, this is just a silly popcorn show. It's Star Trek, though, and that's a problem. The political messaging. I made fun of it because they went so woke with their tropes that they ended up accidentally saying some based things with it. Oops, that's what happens. Again, it's incompetent writing because it looks like it's a good message on the surface, but once you start to think about it, it doesn't quite work, and that's where they're going with it. And naturally, having the main villain of the show be a obvious Donald Trump stand-in is just such an eye-rolling thing that we can see. Now, no gay crap in it for the first episode, so it really didn't bother the woke that much. You had some feminist stuff. You had the diversity casting and a distinct lack of white males in any of this stuff, which is kind of odd. But at the same time, they really didn't push things, the buttons that hard. And so it is not, it's watchable, but you got to turn your brain off. And so that's where it's at. Not good Star Trek. And so this is the first episode. This is where we're at. This is the basis for the show. And this is kind of what I expected. Where does it stand in terms of Kurtzman's Star Trek? Well, it's better than Discovery Seasons 1 and 2. It's not as good maybe as Discovery Season 5, but it's on par with that. It's about the same sort of nonsensical action show that they turned Discovery into at that point. It's way better than Section 31. Section 31 was incomprehensible story that didn't make sense. It is better than Picard Season 1, not as good as Picard Season 3. Where does it lie within the other stuff? Well, it's not as good as any of the Star Trek Enterprise or prior, obviously. That's just kind of how it goes. It was, the effects look really, really good. Other than like the choices with the hologram thing and Holly Hunter, kind of slumping and not looking like a captain. I think the directing was all right. The shots didn't bother me for the most part or anything like that. The cast did a pretty good job. They're pretty decent actors. Holly Hunter doesn't feel like she has the gravitas as a captain. That's about the only thing. Robert Picardo was the best part of the show. Stephen Colbert did like a very flat, muted thing with his Dean thing. So I didn't hear Stephen Colbert so much, so it didn't throw me out of the show, thank God. But it was meant to be jokes, and it fell flat. And there were a lot of jokes. This was meant to have a lot of comedy elements to it, and a lot of that just like didn't even make you laugh and kind of fell flat on that. It just kind of gave that tone that they didn't take Star Trek seriously again. So that's it. Overall, though, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would because, again, on that surface level, it's kind of fine. Now, if you start to think about it, it breaks down. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 and actually say this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's a pretty kind statement given all the problems with this, and that's exactly where we're going to go. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Sign up for my newsletter in the description below. Leave a comment. Did you watch this, or are you just waiting for my review? I'd love to hear from you. And also check out the Stars Entwined. I appreciate you guys being here. We'll be back.